someone was saying like, oh, you pivoted out of superhero movies just as they're declining and now you're doing this thing. It's like, wow, you really like, I was like, no, I wish I was, that's cool. That's a great way to think about it, but that's not how we're doing it. We just love making movies and we love telling stories. And when an opportunity like this comes along, we're gonna take it because it's so fun to do, really, in a lot of ways. This is just a fun adventure to go on.
What do you think they want?
All right, we're here, Rebel Moon. I'm here with Zack Snyder on my talk show.
Sci-fi talk show.
Sci-fi talk show on Rebel. What planet is it? Where are we?
We're on Gandival.
Gandival. I am overly impressed at the idea of world building. All of these terms, Motherworld, Blood Axes, Gandival. What was that, coming up with 3 languages, what was the hardest thing for you to crack?
It's really kind of fun on one level, you know, the naming conventions and how we do it, and we try not to use the exact same one because when you start, you get in a rut with naming things, and sometimes you just like the sounds of names, they all start to sound the same. Mm-hmm. So you have to like rethink, you have to rejig your naming conventions every now and then just so you come at it from an entirely different angle, so then the planet name sounds unique.
Unique, yep.
But yeah, it's a lot of that. We do a lot of, we found ourselves it's deeply immersive, you know, that part of the making of the movie where, you know, in the writing and then in the design, this sort of creation of a culture of like flora and fauna, of landscape, and how that landscape then reflects on the culture, you know, like all those things are intertwined. And that's a big part of sort of doing these kinds of design building exercises where you have to imagine a history and then imagine how that history is shaped by terrain. Like if it's an ice planet, you know, they might have more like stuff that makes fur and I don't know, you know what I mean?
What for you was the most glaring difference between working on an IP where people are gonna go, oh, Wonder Woman would never do that, versus you're now doing this where we don't know who's gonna do what?
You know, I think it's just, you don't have to puzzle it out as hard because it's a little bit more straightforward. For me, look, I'm slightly, in the end, my basic nature is to be subversive with something. And so I end up with Wonder Woman or Batman or Superman trying to sort of get at the why of them. And then in that, that's probably where Canon and I sort of sometimes, you know, get in a little bit of a quarrel. Where with this, because the whole thing is, it's its own thing, I can't really break anybody right out of the box because no one knows how they should be. I'm sure like if we were to make more of these movies, I would end up, you know, somehow, you know, making everybody mad at some point.
I know part 2 is already done, right?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna go later and finish it.
Or at least shot. George Lucas, for example, was like letting Star Wars unfold as he was doing it. So I don't think he even he didn't fully know the plan. So I'm curious.
Yeah, we know the plan. We have the whole thing mapped. What I would say is at least a stop point.
So you have part 1 and 2, but I've heard the term, this is the first of a franchise. So what do you have?
That's what I mean. We have planned a long look, you know, like if it was necessary, we have a long sort of, and you'll see at the end of movie 2, there's clearly a path forward if that is. And then we know from that jumping off point to a much sort of longer world view and we know where everybody plays and what happens to everybody. Because we kind of tried to do that even in a sketchy way early on so we wouldn't paint ourselves into a corner or do something like we're like, oh God, that makes this thing in movie 1 not make sense, you know? So yeah, we've been really trying to be careful about that.
It's a new age for the universe.